Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again for joining your live Q&A Investment Dominator call. And again, my name is Warren Davis, and we're here on this bright Thursday. It is August 29th, 2019. So we are moving through the year, and just wanted to welcome all of you. There's a lot of new folks going to be on the call with us here that have joined. Hello, Rebecca. Those of you, hopefully you can see my screen. I'm gonna do a quick sound check and a quick screen check to make sure you can see the LPG deal flow and that we're displaying good. All right, sounds great, Roberto. Thank you. Hearing, okay, so looks like you're hearing and seeing me just fine. That's good. Good to go. Well, just wanted to take time, take a few minutes, and welcome all of you, especially the new ones that are joining us today. There's quite a few of you on the call. So we're going to endeavor to get your questions answered as quickly as possible. As usual, we will start with the questions that we had from Monday that were left over that I did not get a chance to get to. Before we do that, we just want to let you know there was a big storm. I'm out in the Phoenix area in Arizona. There was a huge storm that came through last night and wreaked havoc on, I guess, some of our cable and internet systems. And I know Cox is out today driving around, and usually when they come to our area, there may be an interruption in our internet. Last night, our internet and our cable went out for a period of time before they got it back on. But everything's up. Looks like it's normal today. But just wanted to let you know, in the event if we're on this call and I have an interrupt in my service, I will be getting back on the call again. I will go in another way, use oh boy, some of you don't care too much for Cox. I got it. Um, so anyway, I will be getting back on the call as quickly as possible. It may take me, 5 minutes or so to log back in. But in case there is an interrupt, I promise you I'll be getting back on the call and finishing up the call. Hopefully, keeping our fingers crossed today, we won't have that issue. But I just wanted to give you a heads up. Okay. Also, Monday is a holiday. So we are looking to cancel Monday's class. Those of you that may be on the Monday's call, what I will be doing is sending out. Um, uh, Thank you so much, Gidget. You're very, very kind. I appreciate you and appreciate all of you being there. But Monday being a holiday, we will hopefully be chomping on some barbecue somewhere or, somewhere with family right at that time. So Monday's webinar, 5 p.m. webinar, will be canceled. But we'll be back with you again Thursday, 12 noon. So hopefully you'll have a chance to enjoy a beautiful 3-day weekend and do something fun and spend some time with family and friends. Okay, one more announcement that the those of you that are on the call that are scheduling onboard calls with me for the next upcoming 2-day Investment Dominator workshop, which is coming up on September the 26th and 27th. That's a Thursday and a Friday. So those of you that are getting on the onboard calls, if you haven't had a chance to schedule some time, I did open up Thursday evening as well. That's this evening, starting this evening, but I've opened up my Thursday evenings with at least 3 more slots on that day, and I'm looking to open up, and plus all the additional slots that are already open, but I'm looking to open up a couple of entire days, and it's not official yet. So I make sure I get that said. It's not official yet. I'm shooting for a couple of Mondays coming up in September, hopefully the 9th and the 16th, that you'll also be able to schedule onboard calls. And I'm hoping to have both of those days free so that we can just go through what's necessary so that we can get you ready for the 2-day workshop. So those of you that are brand new, very quickly, we're going to get your questions answered. Do want to let you know, send in your questions this way. There's a control box that you should be able to open up and just type your questions in here. Unfortunately, I won't be able to, probably won't see your hand being raised. So don't worry about, doing it that way. You'll have to go on and just type your question, and I will get it as soon as possible. Like I say, we do have some questions from last Monday, or just this past Monday, that we're going to look to answer first, and then we'll take any new questions today. And if there's a question in the area that I'm speaking of, go ahead and type it in. Don't forget, those of you that are brand new, please put in the word question or either a question mark before your question. So you would type in, question. Just let me go on and do it real quick for you here. So you would type in, a question mark and then state your question here. Or you could just type in the word question and then go on and state your question after you type that word in. So it gives me an idea that it's a question as opposed to a comment that's being made. Hope that is clear. So with that, let's go on and let me find. That's not exactly what I wanted right there. My Investment Dominator screen. Okay, interesting. Okay, well, we'll have to just open up another session. I had it just a moment ago and it went away. But we'll get another one up here and get started. Hope you all have had a wonderful week so far, and that you're looking forward to a very nice 3-day weekend if you're working. I know I am. And so, one of the questions that we had, and actually this is more of an inform, but I appreciate having these informs. Okay. Okay, that's a good question, Roberto. We'll get to that one quickly. We'll get that one shortly after I'm going to do this inform here. And launch Investment Dominator. Okay, we're going to look at an inform that came from Cesar and Shanda, which is really an important inform to informational piece to get to you. Basically, what they're saying is, if you remember, I went over importing, your list, and you must have any files that you're going to import into Investment Dominator, where you choose a file, needs to be a .csv file. Well, thankful that Shanda and Cesar pointed out to me that there is an Excel 16. So whatever version of Excel you might be using, in Excel 16, there is another version of a .csv file that shows up in the list. I'll walk you through what I'm talking about here, but basically, in Excel 2016, so that's the version of Excel, there's a specific file and it's labeled, so it'll say something like CSV, and you'll see UTF-8, and it'll say comma delimited. Okay, and I was saying on the other call, we do want it to be a comma delimited file that you save your import files in. However, if you see anything that says UTF-8 and then it says comma delimited, that's not the file we're looking for. So I'll give you an example of exactly what we're looking for, so that, let's see, let me find one here. Okay, we're going to open up. Okay, so this is an example of an import file, and it has a .csv on the end of the file. So when you go to save as, you see it shows up as CSV and then comma delimited, and it's .csv. That's the one you're looking for. So when you come down in that list, you want to make sure you save it as this type of file so that Investment Dominator will process it. Now, what Shanda and Cesar pointed out to us is that there's another type. If you're using Excel 2016, and I'm not on that version of Excel, so consequently, when I showed you and I displayed what's available, you don't see that UTF -8 type because of the version of Excel that I'm running. So if you're running Excel 2016 and you see UTF, delimited, that's not the one to use, okay? So just bypass that one and look for one that says just CSV, delimited. That's the one you want to choose. Okay, I make sure I tell you that because that probably caused a little confusion for Shonda and Cesar as they're saving their file, and then when you import the file, Investment Dominator may give you a message back, stating that you have an invalid file type, and see that's what we want to eliminate happening. So hopefully that's clear in that particular area with regards to your import. That's just one more other type of file that you have to look out for. Now, Roberto asked a question, said, what's the best way to launch Investment Dominator from my computer? I always have to search my link from the LPG email. I got you. Don't, all you have to do, if the LPG link is in your email, simply copy it and place that link, open up a browser. So you might open up a brand new. So let's just say this was the link that I was, as a matter of fact, let me just log off here and get, okay, this would be my URL that I'm using, or my address that I want to go to. So on your email, Roberto, the best way, well, I'm saying I'm sitting up here, I kind of spacing. I'm supposed to be writing down my my times for all these questions. Okay, anyway, copy your link out of your email, just like I'm doing here. I'm just copying. So Control C, I'm copying it, and then when you bring up a new tab, simply place that. And hopefully, if you have Google Chrome, that's a good one. I think Internet Explorer will do the same thing. But just copy that into your address bar here, the same link that you have in your email, and when you hit that, it should come up. You should see your login page just like this. Okay. Then you can go on and log in. Now, the beautiful thing about Google Chrome, if I close that, and if I opened up a new address and I just start typing invest, you see, as soon as I start typing Investment Dominator, my link pops up because it keeps memory of that, and then you're boom, you can hit it and you're right there again. So you have to try it at least. You have to go through at least one time with Google Chrome, and hopefully, if that's the browser you're using, that will help you always have access to your Investment Dominator. And then, of course, you just go on and log on. Pass one. Okay. So if your system is not remembering that particular address, there's a setting. Oh, okay, great. All right, great. I'm glad Roberto says it worked. Perfect. That's good. Good. Love that when that happens. Okay, folks, we're going to move on here with our third question. Now, this may open up a can of worms, but I'm gonna go on and open it up anyway because it's important. Okay. Setting pending preliminary research names. Okay, I got your question, Irene. I'm going to see if I can answer that one. First, as you notice, I'm here on my Investment Dominator screen. We're looking at we're basically going to talk about how to read rows imported, basically your output from when you do an import, the result numbers. Okay. Now, this is, like I say, I think it's going to open up a can of worms here, because, a lot of folks have had questions about this, and I'm going to just share with you how I use this information. And I know it's probably in your own experiences as you do this, week in and week out, you may have some questions. So what we're talking about, if you see my screen, this is a picture of someone that did an import of their land list. So they imported a list of records, and the system resulted back, said, okay, we have 1,152 rows imported completely. So the system successfully imported 1,152 rows. Now, keep in mind, in order to do this kind of analysis, because what we're going to look at is the new owners added. What does this number mean? The existing owners, 1127. What does this number mean? Properties added. What does this mean? How does the system arrive at these numbers? Keep in mind that in order for us to do adequate analysis, like you couldn't just send in a picture of this without your Excel file, so that our technical people could really understand how many records you originally had in your Excel file. Did any of them were any of them in error? If you had error records where where Investment Dominator did not process those records, that's going to offset these numbers. It's going to influence and impact these numbers. So I want you to understand, without us having, because we get students to say, well, hey, the system is giving me back this many new owners added, this many existing owners. Okay, how does it get to these numbers? Well, we can't really look at that and determine that without seeing your Excel file as well. So in order for us to do that analysis, we would always have to have the Excel file. So that stated, I'm just going to interpret for you what, in this example, what these rows mean and how it arrives at these numbers. We'll start with the new owners added. So as you can see, the 1152 rows were added completely. Okay, so it added to the system. Oh, and let me preface this entire conversation first by letting you know, when you import files into Investment Dominator, Investment Dominator creates owner records. That's one type of record that gets created. Then it creates a separate record which has to do with your properties. So the two types of records, when you import, you get owner records created and you get property records created. And those are in two separate data files, if you will, on your in your system. So in this first part, I'm endeavor to hopefully explain this. I'm explaining this as best I can, because it's a lot going on behind the scenes of this import. For new owners added, even though it says there's 577 new owners added, that means that when Investment Dominator went into the system and they checked the owner's name, they checked the owner's they checked owner's name, and they checked city, state, and zip. So we have state and county, but in the owners or the land records, the records that you imported, Investment Dominator always checks the city, state, and zip combination. And after checking the city, state, and zip and the owners, Investment Dominator in this example, out of the 1,152 records, it found 577 new owners. So those are owners that did not exist before, that Investment Dominator identified as brand new owners. And remember, these owner records are separate from your land records. So this number is simply counting any brand new owners that did not previously exist. Now, The next one, existing owners. Out of all the numbers, that's why we'd have to look at the Excel file, because you know if the first thing a student says, well, I got 1127 existing owners and I had 577 new owners, so doesn't that mean it would be 1127 and 577? No, it's just saying that of whatever number of records you imported in your Excel file, whatever number, I don't know if that was 1700, I don't know what the number was, existing owners that it identified were 1127 existing owners that was already in the system. So the fact is, some people obviously own multiple properties, right? So it's not going to equal the number of land records, this number existing owners. It's just Investment Dominator is saying, hey, after I went through, I saw the owner's name, I saw their city, state, and zip. We found existing in the system 1,127 records. Simple. So again, it's always derived from the owner's address, city, state, and zip. And that's what mostly Investment Dominator looks at to determine if records either exist or if they're brand new. Now, when we look at the properties added here, okay, you see it says 1,152 property records. Now remember, the owner record is separate from the properties record within Investment Dominator. So when I'm sharing with you this number 1152, because it says these are the rows added. However many records this person attempted to input, there was 1,152 property records. Now remember, a owner can own multiple records, multiple parcels, right? So somehow, when Investment Dominator looked at the APN, it looked at the county and it looked at the state for these property records. The APN, county, and state, it added 1,152 records that were not duplicates. It did not find any duplicates in this area, so it added 1,152 land records. Land records are different than owner records, right? Remember this ID over here, if you can look at my screen, this ID 269, 268, 267, these are individual parcels and they're associated with an owner record, but the important thing to remember, these are individual land records. So that's what Investment Dominator was looking at. It did not find a match, so it added 1,152 records. Okay, hope that is helpful with that number. All right, and good. We got some questions coming in around that. I'll get to those as soon as I finish with my last category here. So existing properties. Existing properties are derived from looking at, again, the APN, the county, and the state. So the Investment Dominator looks at the APN, its APN number, looks at the county, and then it's going to look at the state. And it said, after looking at that, it found existing in the system already, out of all the records this person was importing, it found 552 that matched APN, county, and state. So if you want to do this analysis on your own, if you think Investment Dominator is not processing it properly, you're more than welcome to do that. But every time I've run the analysis through with a file I'm importing, I could always see that Investment Dominator was correct. So any existing properties, again, are from APN, county, and state. And if a record already exists with that combination, Investment Dominator will not add it again. So someone asked me the other day, okay, Warren, can I can I make changes to like existing property records and have Investment Dominator update my changes? No, it won't work like that. If you make any changes and there's no change in the APN, the county, and the state, Investment Dominator considers that an existing property record, and it will just go right on by that record. So I hope that's clear. You can't just make a change to any of your property records, like coming in here and editing one of your property records. And if you leave the APN, county, and state the same, when you go to import that again, import that file, Investment Dominator is going to say, okay, this already exists, and it's going to bypass it. It won't make any changes to your property records. Like I say, I know this kind of opens up a can of worms, and let's see, one question we have that's around this area. Paul says, so I load all property records. Let me see here. I load all property records. Let's see, I'm just writing down, make sure I write down these questions here. From Agent Pro 247. Good. And it will only load the new unique owners once, even though it will also load multiple land records that are associated with a given owner. Yes, that is correct. So it will only load the new unique owners one time. That is correct. That's a correct statement, Paul. So let me give you an example. This is a record I just went into. Remember, the owner's ID is 133, right? So this owner is going to be owner 133. Now, if this Alex Delencio, if he owns 2 or 3 properties, he may have another record that has, the property ID 269. He could have another one that has property ID 270, another one with 271. But under all 3 of those separate land records, his owner ID will always be 133. So that's the way Investment Dominator processes. It makes sure that it keeps track of all of your individual land records. And let me tell you, this is some smart logic for the business we're in, and it will always process like that. Okay, let me see if, oh, you're welcome, Paul. Okay, so another question. Paul, we'll see if we can get this one. Should I load all properties even when some of those properties are owned by the same owner? Absolutely. If I do, how do I filter out the duplicate owner records for the mailing? Oh, good question, Paul. And that's the wonderful thing about Investment Dominator. You load all records. So make sure I write this down. Even when some of those property are owned by the same owner. Yes. Okay. Are owned by same owner. That is correct. And you do just load all of your property records, even though some of the records are owned by the same records. And if you do own that, you don't have to worry about filtering out any of the records. You don't have to worrying about duplicate records for your mailing, because remember, Investment Dominator comes in and will check for any duplicate land records. That's why the owner records are separate from the land records. So it will check to see, do I have the same APN? Do I have the same county? Do I have the same state? And then it checks the owner to make sure, and that just tells Investment Dominator, okay, this Alex Delencio has multiple properties because I have multiple APNs with his same name. but they're in the same county and state. So Investment Dominator knows how to filter out your duplicates, and it won't duplicate it again, so that you send that mailing out a second time. So give me an example of what I'm talking about. If you today sent out records, Alex Delencio, you sent those records out, and then you would change the status, remember, from prospect to mail letter 1. So now Alex Delencio is in mail letter 1. If you come back in next week and you try to you import another file, and if Alex's name is already in that file with the county, state, and the APN, if that's already the same, Investment Dominator says, hey, I've got a record just like that, but it's not in prospect status, it's in mail letter 1. So that tells Investment Dominator, bypass that record because it's in mail letter 1 status, but the state, county, APN number is exactly the same, and the owner's name the same, so it will not enter it again as a prospect record. And that's great, because that means you won't send a letter to that person a second time. And that's the beauty of Investment Dominator. So don't worry about having to you know filter out any duplicates. And that does bring me to another point. I just want to make sure I'm not gonna confuse this point any further by giving you too much information that that will be confusing. Okay, and Irene has a question. Glad to see Irene back on the calls with us. Let's see. Irene, when you open up, let's see if I can answer that one. Up and up under land deals. Okay, you want your records in a particular order. Okay, the only way I can see, so your question basically is how to get your pending preliminary research records to show first. You want those listed first, is what it sounds like. So it says, I used to have the pending preliminaries listed first. Now when I open up Investment Dominator, it brings up the highlighted names first, and then the latest prospects I added. Is there a way to have default setting for pending preliminary research name to come up first when I open up and click on land deals? Okay, can you have a default setting? No, not that I know of in terms of Investment Dominator. I'll check that with our technical group. However, to my knowledge, no, you cannot have a default. You cannot have a default setting so that it automatically puts in your pending preliminary research. But what you do is, okay, you notice all of my records here are prospect. All I want to do is I come up here and hit offer requests. So even though it comes in like this, just hit offer request, and all of your pending preliminary research shows up. Okay, so you can, even though there are some that are highlighted, this is the best way, and that's why this was set up like this. This was set up like this so that you can hit any one of the types of records that you already have. You can hit, if you want to see all the ones that you skip traced, if there are any that you skip traced. Okay, there was one. You can then go back and you can list all your prospects, and then you can list all of the ones that are in process, that are in the process. So this gives you all of your records. So just simply go over and hit offer request, and there are your pending preliminary research records right there in front of you. You got it. You're very welcome. Really appreciate you guys asking these questions, because a lot of folks have questions, but they're a little nervous about asking them. And you guys step up and you get you can have questions answered for a lot of folks, so you're really helping them. Alrighty, as we move on here, another question we had from 826 was from James, and he talked about the offer letter. Okay, and we do get this question every now and then. It's perfectly okay, but he's talking about his signature line. It won't fit on the first page. So now that tells me that, James, you might have made an adjustment to your offer, and I think you're talking about demonstrate offer request. Let's see. Your sales agreement. Okay. Yeah. It's so on the sales agreement, if I were to come in here and generate documents, and I want to look at the actual offer. So here's a cover letter. I think we're talking about this document here, which is your actual sales agreement that I think, James, you're actually referring to. And you can see all of the information fits on one page. You know, now I'm thinking you're saying your signature line here, this line here, in some cases is going over to another page. Now that tells me that you might be using a custom sale agreement document, one that you made up as a custom, because if you use the default one that's set up in the system, then you should not be having that problem. The defaulted documents that we have in our system are meant to fit on one page. So now what I can share with you, if such is not the case, if you haven't made any changes, I'm wondering why that is showing up. Let me see before I do that. So, okay, I generate documents. I will look at my offers here. I'm going to bring that out. Okay, so I've got that example. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into customize. And what you can do is create a custom document, James, if you're having problems with it printing on, it's not printing on one page. Let me see here. Which one could I do? Give an example. Okay, I think this custom offer agreement. I'll preview the document here. And yes, this is a sale agreement for property. Now I added a line or two to this document. And so I remember having the same issue with my signature line was not fitting on one page. So if you can tell, you see under here where I have seller and then I have buyer, and notice the buyer, there's no space in between the address here and the buyer heading. If you look at, okay, let's see. I just had it here a moment ago. And it disappeared on me, but I'll get it back. Okay. There she is. Okay. So now you notice there's a space in between seller and buyer. This is the default or the built-in document that comes from that's in our system that Jack, this is his sale agreement without any changes. And you'll notice that it all fits on one page, but there's a blank line between the seller and the buyer. And notice in my custom document, there is no line between seller and buyer, right? So I had to modify this, and what I can share with you, James, is if you're having trouble with that, you can look at an article. I can walk you through this too if you need additional assistance. But you can go in and look at an article, and I'll just type in Jack here and do search. Okay, how to customize Jack's newsletter, how to customize offer templates. I think this is the one we would look for, the article, how to customize Jack's offer. So there's an offer cover letter that you can customize. As a custom offer template. And this, I believe, is the sales agreement. That's custom exhibit A. Okay, I think it's the custom offer letter template. Make sure I'm right about that. Yeah, this is the one that you would select to change. And I do have it, I already have walked through how to actually create a custom document. So if you wanted to create a custom document, you have to come up under customize. Hey, come on, there we go. Customize, you want to go into custom documents. Then you want to say you want to add a document. Okay. And then of course you have to come down and select land only and basically, put in your title. And then when you get down here to source, this is where you have to copy in that source. And I stated that in another lesson. So you have to basically copy in the source, which is this information here, which is in HTML. But remember, you can either just do a Control A and it selects it all, and then you do a Control C and you copy that into your source here, and it's going to all end up in here. And then you have to go in and modify it, make sure you take out that extra line so that it fits on one page. And I'm not going to take the time to do that here. If you need some additional help, we'll be happy to assist you with that. But basically, it'll come out to where you don't have that blank line in between your buyer. So either you've created a custom document here where you've added a line and you're not using the built-in one. If you are using the built-in one, please send in a ticket on that. Let us know that you're using the custom document, the built-in one. So you send in the ticket by using the create a support ticket. Let us know that that's what's happening, and we'll see if we can research it from your end and determine why it's working like that. Okay. Okay. So Bruce is asking, will the owner receive a letter for each property? And I'm thinking you're saying if you're talking about, yeah, when you send out an offer or a sale agreement, yes, the owner is going to receive a letter for each property. And I will explain that. Let me just make sure I note this question. Owner receive a letter for each property. Yes, and we want the owner to receive a letter for each property because each property is itself, it's got its own APN number, right? And you're probably offering a specific net to seller for each property that the owner has. And, of course, the seller will be the same, and your buyer will be the same, but you'll have, if you have, we've had a case where it's up to, I believe it was 6 or 8 properties one owner had. So we sent them an individual net to seller or offer price for their property, and the owners are glad to get that because in their own household they're going to determine, well, say, well, maybe I'll sell your company these first three parcels, but I'm going to hang on to the other three. Or if it's 8 parcels, I'll say these first 4 parcels, but I'm going to hang on to the other 4. So we definitely want them to have a separate sale agreement for every single parcel. And if you do, we sent them all in a large, I don't know if it's 9 by 12 or it's a larger envelope so that the letters don't get folded. The 8.5 by 11 page does not get folded. I think that would be good to send them a nice large envelope with all of their properties in there so they can go through and determine which ones they want to actually sell you. So I hope that answers your question there. Okay. No, James, excuse me, Bruce. Um, a neutral letter for each property, no, because remember, in your vacant land list that you get, you're sending to owners that have properties. So when I send out a prospect letter, if I had to do generate documents, and I download the letters, okay, 46, a neutral letter for each. Okay, this is again Bruce. Okay. Let me clarify that. Let me clarify what I just said. If now usually the way it works, we have a neutral letter that goes out to a particular owner about a specific property. So a lot of times with our neutral letters, they do talk about a specific APN, but a lot of times when we send to owners, we've only got knowledge of one particular APN that owner owns. If you have knowledge of, and it's in your system where the owner has multiple properties, and your system, Agent Pro 247, or either the way you process yours out of the county, picks up every single APN for that particular owner, then yes, you're going to end up sending multiple neutral letters to the same owner. But that normally is not the way it works. Normally we just have one APN that we know about for this owner, and we let them know, hey, we're interested in buying that specific property. And then when they come back into us and say, yeah, I'm interested in an offer on that property, and they also note usually in the caller's comments, that's why we have these. So you open up this prospect letter, when they call us back and say, yeah, I'm interested in an offer, usually in the caller's comments, they'll say, Mr. Snow has other properties he is interested in selling. And sometimes they'll list the APNs here. Otherwise they'll say, but they'll let you know, hey, but he wants a call first from someone in your company. So to answer your question, if you have multiple APNs, if you have the same owner, and that is known up front, the system will send multiple neutral letters, and that's just the way it processes. That's the way the system processes it right now. Okay, so we did deal with the signature line there, and that was the last question we answered. And Okay, neutral letter. There's a question about can you change the date that prints on the neutral letter? And that's from Cesar and Shonda. Yes, change the date that prints on a neutral letter. Okay, now you can change the date that prints on a neutral letter. Again, okay, if we were to decide to do that, let me just generate documents here and show you your neutral letters. This is your neutral letter. If you decide to do that, you're actually going to have to create what we call a custom document, because this is the date it looks like you want to change. This date is set by the system as a, it's the current date that this letter is being generated. So the question came in, can you change that date? The answer is yes, because you said the example is I want to print my letters today, but I want the create date to be specified a date, a later date like November 13th. So Cesar and Shonda, if you're going to do that, what you'd have to do is create your custom document here. And I'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Let's say we go under custom documents. Okay, let me find a neutral letter custom document. Okay, you see where if I do a document preview here, this shows that it's going to print, and it's whatever date you're doing that, it shows up as the 29th, right? So now, when I edit that document, this shows me exactly the text in the HTML code. And notice it says here, current date. So this is a built-in field that is automatically put on your neutral letters. So can you change this date? Yes. What you'd have to do is you come in here and basically you get rid of this field, and you would just type this as November 13th, 2019. So you're essentially you're hard coding your create date or your run date. This is your current date. You're hard coding that. So if you want that to be November 13th, if you want it to be, September 20th, or whatever you want it to be, you have to come in here and you have to get rid of the current date field, because any fields that you see with these indicators around that name, that tells me it's a built-in field. So if you want to look at all your built-in fields, you can insert. You notice these fields here. Let me give you an example. Let's put my cursor here, and I'm going to insert. Oh, let's just say I wanted to insert. Let me say I'll just insert property HOA. You see how it comes in? It comes in with the brackets already around it. That means that's a field that we now we've inserted, and it's going to use whatever value the system gives it. That's the value that's going to be displayed here. That's why you have owner, company name, caller name, etc. So if I want something other than what the system is going to display, in this case, the system is going to display the current date, because current date is our built-in value. So the system reaches out and gets a date field and says, okay, the current date is, August 29th. That's what I display here. If you want it to say anything else, you have to get rid of this system generated field and put in the field that you want to hard code. And that's the only way. And then of course, you come down here and you create your document, you save it or you update it, and then you have a custom document of your neutral letter. You have to name it something. You'd have a custom document. And when you came into land deals, if you generate documents at this level, you go down here and you look at all your custom document templates, and you see it automatically creates the new letter, neutral letter O2 that we created as a custom document. That's the way that you could get around that, having that hard-coded system date actually display. And from what I understand, that's the only way you would be able to change that. Okay, good questions, everybody. Appreciate you guys being here today and asking your questions. Let me see if there's anything I missed here. So, nope, I think I caught all the questions. I caught all the questions from today. So remember, if you're planning to be here on Monday's class or Monday's webinar at 5 o'clock Pacific time will be canceled. I'll make sure I send out an email. So you should all get the email by end of business tomorrow. Tomorrow being Friday the 30th. I will have that sent out by then. In the meanwhile, please continue typing in your questions, sending in your questions. Next week, when we do get back, we have some questions around changing a batch that you might have submitted, how to delete those batch records. We will get into that and get you up to speed on anything else that you might have questions. Again, those of you that are on the onboard sessions, you have 2 sessions with me personally that we can walk through anything we want to walk through. Do want to call your attention to one of the most important, if you're coming to the next 2-day workshop, one of the most important things you'll do is set up your buying and your selling site domains, which if you're going to use GoDaddy, that means calling GoDaddy, getting a selling site domain and a buying site domain. And I can't emphasize this enough. I want to make sure you understand that's one of the most important things you'll do getting ready for the 2-day workshop. It takes a lot of time to go through that. So if you've already got that set up prior to your 2-day workshop, then we're able to expedite all the other activity in the class, and we make sure we get through it without causing a slowdown in the class. I think this next class coming up, this next 2-day workshop, we've already are up to about 40 participants that are going to be there. So we need to have you do this before the 2-day workshop. That said, let me leave you with this thought today regarding your courage. And I really appreciate all of you, because it takes courage to do this business. This business will work for you and make you quite successful. But like anything else, it takes courage to step out and do some things maybe you've never done before. The statement I want to leave with you is, you cannot swim for new horizons until you have courage to lose sight of the shore. So I hope that makes sense. You cannot swim for new horizons until you have the courage to lose sight of the shore. And that came from William Faulkner, who used to play Columbo. Those of you that are, seasoned enough to understand or know who Columbo is. But in any case, don't forget to swim for those new horizons. And I really hope that you have a wonderful holiday weekend coming up. And we'll look forward to seeing you or being with you on the call on next Thursday right here at 12 noon. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend.